My parents skipped my wedding for vacation. 1 week later, they begged me for money. That's when I showed them what trivial really means. They say a wedding is the day you'll remember for the rest of your life. I'll remember mine too, but not for the reason I ever dreamed. Because when I stood at the altar, in a dress I paid for myself, with flowers my friends had arranged the night before, there were two
Chairs
empty
that should have
chairs
held
in the
my
front
parents.
row. Instead, they were thousands of miles away, sipping cocktails in Hawaii, calling my wedding a trivial event for someone at the bottom. My name is Elena Vargas. I'm 29 years old, and I've never been anyone's golden child. My younger sister, Marissa, was always the star. Straight teeth, expensive clothes, vacations every summer. She married into money, and my parents couldn't stop bragging about their successful daughter. Me? I worked double shifts as a nurse, scraped together savings, and dreamed of a wedding where, for once, I'd be seen. But every time I spoke of it, my parents' smiles turned sour. "Do you really think people care about your little ceremony?" my mother asked once, adjusting her diamond bracelet, one Marissa's husband had gifted her. My father chimed in, "Save the money for something useful. A wedding is trivial when you don't have status." Trivial. That word would burn itself into my bones. Still, I pressed forward, because I wasn't marrying for show. I was marrying David, a man who loved me when I was exhausted, when my hair was a mess, when my scrubs smelled of antiseptic. He didn't care about my family's opinion, only about us. When I sent out invitations, my parents didn't even RSVP. Instead, they booked a luxury trip to Hawaii with Marissa and her husband. "Family first," my mother captioned under a photo of palm trees and cocktails. Family first. Except, apparently, when it came to mine. The wedding day arrived cold and bright, the kind of early spring morning where the air carries both hope and frost. The church was small but beautiful. White roses lined the aisle, and soft music played as guests found their seats. I tried not to look at the two empty chairs in the front row, reserved with little mom and dad cards I had placed there myself. David squeezed my hand as we waited behind the doors. "Ignore them," he whispered. "Today is about us." I nodded, blinking back tears that threatened to ruin my mascara. But when the doors opened and I walked down the aisle, those chairs screamed louder than any organ music. Every guest noticed. Whispers floated like smoke. "Where are her parents? Didn't they come?" I lifted my chin higher, forcing a smile. If they wanted to humiliate me, they would not win. I said my vows. David said his. We kissed, we laughed, and my friends cheered louder than any family ever had. But when the photos were developed, every frame showed those two empty chairs. That night, in the hotel room, while David uncorked a bottle of cheap champagne, my phone buzzed with a notification. Instagram. A photo of my parents and Marissa on a beach in Maui, smiling under the golden sun. My father held a glass of whiskey, my mother in a wide-brimmed hat, Marissa flashing her designer swimsuit. The caption, "Grateful for real family moments. Memories that matter." My hands shook, my vision blurred, and David gently took the phone from me before I dropped it. "They'll regret it one day," he said softly, pulling me into his chest. At the time, I didn't believe him. But 1 week later, my father called, his voice frantic, desperate, and begging. And that's when I learned that my wedding wasn't the only thing they had thrown away. It was also their last chance at my loyalty. They skipped my wedding for Hawaii. A week later, they begged me to save them. That was the day my revenge began. People say parents never play favorites. That's a lie. In my family, favoritism wasn't whispered. It was carved into every birthday, every holiday, every comparison. My sister Marissa was born 3 years after me, and from the moment she took her first breath, she was the star. While I wore hand-me-down dresses, she got outfits with tags still on. While I brought home B+ report cards, she got applauded for just showing up with a smile. When she won a local beauty pageant, they threw a party. When I graduated nursing school, after years of sleepless nights and loans they never helped pay, they didn't even come. "Don't take it personally," my father said. We were busy helping Marissa move into her new condo. Marissa was always building a future. I was always just getting by. My parents saw my career as humble, unglamorous. They didn't brag about my night shifts in the ER, the lives I helped save, the hours I sacrificed. But Marissa? She married a man with money, a financial advisor with a jawline sharp enough to impress my mother and a wallet fat enough to impress my father. They spoke about him like he was a gift from heaven. Marissa knows how to choose, my mother would say, loud enough for me to hear. When David proposed to me with a modest ring he'd saved up for while working as a high school teacher, my mother actually scoffed. Cute, she said, but don't you want to wait for someone who can give you more? I thought marriage was about love, not bank accounts. But in my parents' world, money was the only language that mattered. That's why, when I began planning my wedding, the criticism started immediately. You don't need a wedding, my father said. Just sign the papers. Why waste money on flowers? My mother added. They die in a week. Marissa's reception had a champagne fountain. Bianca, the family friend who always circled like a vulture, reminded me at dinner once. What are you doing again? Oh, a buffet. I swallowed every insult, smiled through every jab, told myself the day would still be beautiful even if they didn't see it. But deep down, it cut me, because all I wanted was for them to look at me. Even once, the way they looked at Marissa. The truth is, my parents never wanted me to shine. When I worked overtime to help them pay a loan one year, they said, that's what daughters are for. When Marissa sent them a fruit basket for Christmas, they called her thoughtful for weeks. It was always like that. My sweat was invisible. Her gestures were golden. So when they dismissed my wedding as trivial, I shouldn't have been surprised. But I was, because some part of me still hoped. Some foolish, childlike part still thought maybe they'd show up and say, we're proud. Instead, they packed their bags and boarded a flight to Hawaii. David tried to shield me. He told me their absence didn't define me. He reminded me that my friends, my colleagues, the people who had seen me at my lowest, were there cheering me on. And he was right. But when I walked down that aisle and saw those 2 empty chairs, I felt like a child again. Forgotten. Unchosen. And when the photos of Hawaii hit my feed, smiling on beaches while I cut my wedding cake, I realized the truth. I wasn't just second place. In their eyes, I was never even in the race. That pain simmered all through my honeymoon. David held me as I cried at night. He reminded me I didn't need their approval, but I couldn't let it go, because it wasn't just about skipping my wedding. It was about erasing me, about choosing cocktails and sunsets over their own daughter's vows. And the irony, the cruel, twisted irony, was that just 1 week later, they would need me. Not Marissa, not her rich husband, me. And I was done being invisible. They called my wedding trivial, but fate has a funny way of turning tables. Because the next call I got from them wasn't to congratulate me, it was to beg. It was exactly 1 week after I came back from my honeymoon. I was folding laundry, mundane, ordinary, when my phone rang. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen since before the wedding. Dad. For a moment, I considered letting it ring out, but something in my gut told me to answer. Hello, I said cautiously. His voice came fast, frantic, not the usual calm authority he'd always used to dismiss me. Elena, finally, I need your help. We're in trouble. My heart thudded. What kind of trouble? There was a pause. I could almost hear him trying to arrange the words, trying to find a way to spin the truth. It's the loan. We've fallen behind. The bank is threatening to call it in. I frowned. What loan? The one we took out for the investment. You know, opportunities don't come cheap. His voice cracked, something I'd never heard before. Then it hit me. The expensive Hawaii trip, the luxury hotel, the cocktails and spa treatments. The investment was sunbathing on a beach while I cut my cake without them. I gripped the phone tighter. How much? 40,000, he muttered, so low I almost didn't hear. They want at least 15 by the end of the week. 40,000. My chest tightened. That was more than my yearly rent, more than every shift I'd ever picked up combined. And yet he said it like I was supposed to snap my fingers and make it appear. Dad, my voice trembled. Why are you asking me? Where's Marissa? Where's her husband with the fat wallet you love so much? He sighed heavily. They can't. Their money's tied up. And you're the responsible one, Elena. You always have been. You owe this family. Oh, that word was the blade. I owed them. After they skipped the one day that should have mattered, after they called my wedding trivial, posted sunsets while I walked alone, I let the silence hang so long he thought the call had dropped. Elena, are you there? Yes, I said flatly. I'm here. Then you'll help us. His tone sharpened, shifting from pleading to expecting. The same tone he'd always used when I was younger, when my chores doubled because Marissa had studying to do, when I worked nights to cover bills while she was out partying. I'll see what I can do, I said finally, because I wasn't ready to say no. Not yet. That night, David found me sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. What's wrong? He asked gently. I told him everything. The loan, the desperate call, the $40,000 hole. His jaw tightened. And they expect you to fix it? Yes. He sat beside me, taking my hands. Elena, you don't owe them anything. They made their choice. I swallowed hard. I know, but maybe this is my chance. Chance for what? I looked into his eyes. For revenge. Over the next few days, my father called again and again. Each time, the tone grew sharper. Elena, the deadline's approaching. What are you waiting for? Elena, if you cared about this family, you'd step up. Elena, don't be selfish. Selfish. That word almost made me laugh. Where were they when I begged them to attend my wedding? Where was their family first then? Every voicemail became fuel. Every demand another match on the fire already burning inside me. And then one evening, my mother's voice joined the chorus. Elena, sweetheart, she cooed, her tone sugar-coated. Don't let us lose everything. You're in a good position. Nurses make good money. You and David don't have children yet. Think of us. Think of your father. Think of him. The man who left me alone at the altar while he toasted with my ties. I thought of him, all right. I thought of exactly how I'd let him fall. That was the night I started collecting proof. I pulled bank records, tracked receipts, pieced together their spending. Luxury hotels, designer boutiques, not a single cent in business investments. And I spoke to a lawyer, David's friend, who explained what I already suspected. My parents had used my name without consent as a backup guarantor on part of the loan. Illegal. By the time I tucked those documents into a folder labeled payback, my plan was already alive. They wanted me to save them. But instead, I was going to save myself. They thought I'd bend. They thought I'd hand them everything I'd bled for. But this time, I wasn't their safety net. I was the knife waiting to cut the cord. Once upon a time, I would have dropped everything to help them. But the girl who longed for their approval, the one who cried at every insult, who twisted herself into knots just to be noticed, died the day they skipped my wedding. The woman who replaced her? She was ready to fight. I spent evenings after my shifts digging into records, piecing together the puzzle of their lives. Every receipt told a story. $4,800, Four Seasons Maui. $2,200, designer boutique in Honolulu. $1,500, luxury dining, cocktails, and wine. It wasn't an investment. It was indulgence. They'd burn through loan money as if it were Monopoly cash, assuming someone else, me, would clean up the ashes. I met with Victor, David's lawyer friend, in a downtown cafe. His briefcase clicked open like a vault of secrets. You said they listed you as a guarantor? He asked, scanning the documents I'd brought. Yes, I replied, but I never signed anything. He raised an eyebrow. Then it's fraud. They forged your signature. The word hit me like a hammer. Fraud. Will I be liable? I whispered. Victor shook his head. Not if you prove it wasn't you. We'll get handwriting experts, compare signatures. Trust me, if they thought you'd roll over, they picked the wrong target. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope spark like a match in the dark. Meanwhile, my parents kept calling. My father's tone grew more frantic. Elena, the bank's breathing down our necks. You need to wire the money.
Now.
My mother's guilt trip sharpened. Sweetheart, if you don't help us, people will think you abandoned your family. Is that how you want to be remembered? And Marissa, her venom was the worst. She called one night, voice dripping with scorn. Honestly, Elena, this is your chance to finally be useful. You've been bitter about us skipping your little wedding, but this is bigger than that. Step up or stop pretending you're family. I listened in silence, the fury building, then hung up. Because what none of them realized was that I was stepping up, just not in the way they wanted. I started a paper trail. Copies of their forged signatures, bank statements, screenshots of Marissa's vacation posts bragging about champagne nights in paradise. Even a photo of my parents smiling in front of a Hawaiian sunset the same week the loan default began. Evidence. Every insult, every betrayal, transformed into ammunition. I was no longer just their daughter. I was their prosecutor. David supported me every step. At night, we sat side by side at the dining table, papers spread out, coffee mugs growing cold. You've done more for them than they ever did for you, he said, sliding another stack of receipts my way. Now you're just holding them accountable. I looked at him, at the man who showed up for me when no one else did, and felt a surge of gratitude. He was proof I wasn't worthless. Proof I was worthy of love, respect, and loyalty. Something my parents never gave. 1 week later, I filed the official complaint.
Fraud.
Forgery. Misuse of funds. The case opened faster than I expected. The bank was eager to protect themselves, the investigators eager to unravel the truth. When I handed over the folder, my payback folder, it felt like putting down a weight I'd carried since childhood. The storm hit my parents 3 days later. Investigators showed up at their door. Neighbors watched as questions flew, papers were served, and panic finally cracked their carefully polished smiles. They called me immediately. How could you do this to us? My mother screamed, her voice high and shrill. Because you did it to yourselves, I said calmly. My father tried another tactic. Elena, we're family. You can't betray us like this. I almost laughed. Betray you? You skipped my wedding for my ties. You forged my name on a loan. You left me with debt that wasn't mine. Tell me, who betrayed who? Silence. For once in my life, they had no comeback. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the balcony with David, and looked out at the city lights. Do you feel guilty? He asked gently. I thought for a long moment, letting the cool air brush my skin. No, I said finally. I feel free. Because revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's quiet, methodical. Sometimes it's simply letting people choke on the lies they fed you. And for the first time, I was the one holding the spoon. They thought I'd be their safety net forever. But when the fall came, I didn't catch them. I handed them the rope they tied around my neck and watched them trip over it instead. When you grow up being the invisible child, you imagine revenge as some grand explosion, fireworks, shouting, a cinematic ending. But when it finally came, it was quieter than I expected. Quieter and sharper. The bank moved fast. Investigators confirmed the forgery. My signature compared against official records, letters I'd signed at work, even old school forms. The sloppiness of their imitation was almost insulting. They hadn't even tried. They just assumed I'd roll over, like I always had. But this time, the bank sided with me. My liability was cleared, and theirs doubled. The first cracks showed at Marissa's fancy dinner party. Someone in her circle had already heard whispers, loans unpaid, investigations underway. People who once toasted her with champagne suddenly kept their distance. Marissa called me in a rage that night, her voice shrill and frantic. Do you realize what you've done? People are talking. You've ruined our reputation. I held the phone away from my ear, then answered coolly.
No, Marissa.
You ruined it when you forged my name. I just stopped covering for you. She screamed something incoherent before hanging up. And for the first time in years, I smiled after talking to her. My parents, though, they were unraveling. My mother left voicemail after voicemail, her tone swinging between sobs and fury. Elena, how could you betray us like this? We're your parents. Elena, you've shamed this family. Are you happy now? Elena, we raised you. Don't forget who you owe.
Oh,
Always owe. But this time, I didn't delete the voicemails in tears. I saved them. Proof not of my guilt, but of theirs. The true fallout came when the bank officially seized assets. Their vacation home, the one they bragged about endlessly, gone. My father's shiny new car, repossessed. Even their jewelry, their furniture, their carefully constructed facade, auctioned off piece by piece. Neighbors whispered as moving trucks pulled away. The mighty Vargas family, stripped down to bare walls. And I didn't lift a finger. I just watched from a distance, sipping coffee, feeling decades of humiliation finally unravel into justice. The final confrontation came weeks later. I came home from work to find them waiting outside my apartment building. My mother looked gaunt, her hair unkempt, her eyes wild with desperation. My father's shoulders sagged, the proud posture gone. Elena, he said, his voice hoarse. We need to talk. I crossed my arms. There's nothing left to say. My mother stepped forward, tears spilling.
please.
We lost everything. Your sister, she won't even answer our calls. We have nowhere to go. Can we stay with you? Just until we get back on our feet. For a moment, I just stared. The irony was staggering. They skipped my wedding, left me alone in the cold. And now they wanted warmth, shelter, forgiveness. I let the silence stretch until my father shifted uncomfortably. Then I spoke.
Slowly. Clearly.
When I walked down that aisle and saw 2 empty chairs where you should have been, that was the day I buried the idea of parents who cared. You chose cocktails over vows, vacations over family. You called me trivial. I leaned closer, my voice like ice. And now you want me to save you?
No. You taught me what family means.
And I finally listened. My mother sobbed. My father's jaw clenched. You'll regret this, he spat. We're still your blood. I shook my head. Blood isn't family.
Loyalty is.
And you lost mine a long time ago. I turned, walked inside, and locked the door. Their muffled voices echoed in the hallway for a while before fading into silence. And with that, they were gone from my life, truly gone. That night, David held me close as I cried. Not from pain this time, but release. They can't hurt you anymore, he whispered. You finally ended it. And he was right. For the first time in my life, the weight was gone. They thought I'd always be the one to bail them out. But when the walls caved in, they learned the truth. I wasn't their safety net. I was the one cutting the rope. In the weeks that followed, the silence was almost eerie. No more desperate calls. No more guilt-laced voicemails. No more Marissa shrieking about reputations. Just quiet. And for the first time in my life, that quiet didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like freedom. David and I settled into our little apartment like it was a palace. We didn't have luxury vacations or champagne fountains, but we had laughter in the kitchen, late-night takeout, and mornings where I woke up knowing I was loved, not judged. He'd brush my hair out of my face and say, "You're stronger than anyone gives you credit for." And slowly, I started to believe it. Because strength isn't being the golden child. It isn't flaunting money or posting fake smiles from Hawaii beaches. Strength is walking away from the people who tried to break you and choosing peace instead. My parents? They didn't vanish. I still heard the whispers. They moved into a cramped rental on the edge of town. People who once envied their parties now snickered behind their backs. Marissa, too proud to be tainted by scandal, distanced herself. She stopped visiting, stopped calling. The perfect family, image cracked like glass, each shard cutting them a little deeper. And though a younger version of me might have pitted them, the woman I had become simply shrugged. They hadn't pitted me when I begged them to come to my wedding. They hadn't pitted me when they called my vows trivial. They hadn't pitied me when they forged my name and tried to leave me with their debt. No, pity wasn't mine to give. Instead, I poured my energy into building something better. David and I found a small house, nothing fancy, but warm, with creaky floors that sang when you walked across them. We painted the walls ourselves, laughing as we dripped blue paint on our shoes. On the mantle, I placed a single photo, me and David on our wedding day. Not the empty chairs, not the shame. Just us, smiling, promising forever. Every time I passed that photo, I felt whole again. Months later, my father tried one last time. A letter in shaky handwriting arrived at my doorstep. Elena, we made mistakes, but we're still your parents. Don't abandon us in our old age. One day you'll understand what family means. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer, not out of forgiveness, but as a reminder of who they were and who I refused to become. Because family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who show up when it matters. And when it mattered, they were on a beach. So no, I didn't abandon them. They abandoned me long before my wedding day. All I did was finally stop chasing people who never intended to be caught. Now, when people ask about my wedding, I don't tell them about the empty chairs. I tell them about David's hand squeezing mine, the friends who danced until their shoes broke, the cake that smeared across my face as we laughed so hard I nearly choked. I tell them about joy, resilience, and the sweet taste of freedom that came later. And sometimes, when I really feel bold, I tell them this. My parents skipped my wedding for vacation. 1 week later, they begged me to save them. And that's when I showed them what trivial really means. They missed my wedding for cocktails and beaches. But when they needed me, I let them taste the cold reality they'd earned. That wasn't cruelty. That was justice.